Hey guys, this is gonna be a lighting scene guide for beginners and more advanced players as well. I will be talking about PvE progression builds, rotations, and advantages of this build compared to Shadow. So let's just get into it. First of all, lighting build is specified as stealth build. That being said, you need to be in stealth to deal DPS. Meanwhile, for Shadow, you need to have 5 poison stacks and be out of the stealth to deal DPS. So what are the pros of the lighting build? Basically, lighting has way more DPS than Shadow, but forces you to remain in stealth. If you're in stealth, you get additional 30% of critical damage and a huge boost to movement speed. This movement speed boost allows you to dodge certain attacks of the bosses without having to resist. You just go to the other side without the problem. As it does more DPS and has way better mobility, the downside is that you can't face tank anything, and if you won't evade you will get knocked out of stealth and rotation, which causes you to lose DPS. So here's an example. I have to rest stealth to continue my rotation. For Shadow you never have to bother about something like that, since you sit out of the stealth whole time. Alright, I will be talking now from the very beginning of progression in game itself. If you just made an assassin and you wonder which skill you should focus on using, at level 4 you will get Heart Stab and Lighting Crush, and this is gonna be your source main of DPS on early levels. So basically go to stealth by using any skill possible. Probably it's gonna be Shadow Dash. Mind you have to be on the enemy's back to go to stealth. So go to stealth, use your RMB and use your Lighting Crush. And this is gonna be your main source of DPS for a while. As you progress in story, at some point you will be able to change your skill set. It's around level 16 and chapter 15 I guess. So what you wanna do is change your element into lighting by using that button. And change your skills as you progress further in leveling as to following. Mislash is your LMB chi recovery skill, which you won't be using that much since you don't have chi problems in stealth and you won't be out of the stealth to use it, so pick whichever you want. Landmine is your double KD CC. This is really useful versus certain bosses that have mechanics with the KDs, for example Zulia and Vortex. But the other skill, Mind Toss, this skill has really good DPS overall at early levels, so I would recommend you to spec it and use it early on, especially with the MSP Soul Shields. I will get into that later. Heart Stab is your main source of DPS early on. You could use the Bombardment instead, as it has AoE, but to be honest it uses too much chi and in my opinion it's not worth using at all. Decoy is your only block ability. It also has resist after the successful counter and can be used twice to proc the party's stealth, which looks like this and gives you 1 second iframe for whole party. So make sure you always spec the move 1. Shadow Slash is your main source of getting to stealth quickly, as it can be used in front of the enemy. I would use Knockdown in PvP Arena and Venom Slash for the Shadow build, but I would always recommend you to go for Shadow Slash on Lightings, as it's really quick to get into the stealth without any problems. Shadow Drain is a skill that gives you a huge amount of chi recovery, as well as re-stealths you for 6 seconds when used on the poisoned enemy. Shock Bomb is your main source of stacking poison. It is also far better than Poison Breath, as it has 10 times faster animation and it's also cancelable, so be sure to use that instead of the Poison Breath. Poison Breath is okay for PvP as well as the Venom Swarm, as it blocks the defensive skills, but for PvE I would always recommend you using Shock Bomb. Smoke Screen is a skill that can put you to stealth immediately, but it has really long cooldown and also procs global party stealth cooldown, which is this one. You can also use the projectile protection with the chi regen, but personally I prefer the stealth option, but it's up to preference. Lighting Pierce is your main source of stacking poison on early levels. It also has a decent amount of DPS and additionally reduces the CD of Lightning Rod, so make sure you use it. Lightning Rod is a really good AoE DPS skill with focus recovery. Use it off cooldown to never run out of chi. It is also gonna be main source of DPS on endgame gear. Lotus Fury is your main resistance skill that can last up to 3 seconds, but be careful when using it since it has really long cooldown. Last but not least, Fighting Spirit, aka Blue Buff. It gives you 100% critical chance for 10 seconds as well as the critical damage. Be sure to always pick it. So this is your main PvE skill build that you're gonna use all the time. You can change Landmine into Mine Toss and Smokescreen into Projectile Protection, but rest is gonna stay as it is. As for the rest of the skills, I will be talking about the various ones that you will use in your rotation, so make sure you look at the rest of them by yourself, as what I'm going to talk about is gonna be only for PvE, and I will be talking mostly about the items you need to get to make your rotation available, so keep that in mind. Okay, once you finish the story, you should get 8 set MSP Soul Shields and rest of the basic accessories and weapon. I would recommend going for the Seraph Dagger. I will explain why later on. But because of the 8 set MSP, you will be using the Mine Toss as much as possible because the damage is just insane. So your rotation goes like this. So you wanna start with the Chug Bomb, into Blue Buff, into Mine Toss, into the Time Bomb, into 4 RMBF and repeat 4 RMBF. So it goes like that. Use Mine Toss on the cooldown, restall. And just keep it going like that. So at this point, just make sure you use your Mine Toss as often as you can. And whenever you have 5 poison stacks on the enemy, make sure to use the Time Bomb. It will make the poison restack after the 6 seconds duration. So what you want to get next is, first of all, Pulse Mystic Badge. You can obtain it in Celestial Basin Merchant, and you need to farm it for a while. And another item is the Blue Moon Soul Badge. You can either buy it from the Express by doing daily challenges, or you can buy it off market for money. Okay, with those two badges, your rotation becomes similar to the one you will use at the end game. So it goes as following. You start with the Chug Bomb, into the Blue Buff, into Time Bomb, into Shadow Drain, into RMB for RMB 4. At first it's gonna look like this. And if you're off the cooldowns, meaning you won't have the Time Bomb, just use your F in rotation. But at this point, you should be focusing on cancelling your Lightning Rod by using the Heart Stop. To do that, you simply use Lightning Rod, and in the moment the Lightning Rod is about 45 degrees from this angle, you simply use your Heart Stop. Make sure you do that, make sure you practice a lot. It's one of the hardest cancelling in this game, and it's pretty annoying sometimes. You need good ping to do that, honestly, but if you have around 120, 100, you should be fine. Here's how it looks like done perfectly. It's not easy to do, but it requires a lot of practice, so be patient. As you progress further, you should be getting the BT right. I would recommend getting the BT soul shields as soon as possible, getting your earring at least to stage 4, and getting your ring, it can stay on stage 3. And the most important thing of them all is Tiger Bracelet. Now remember when I told you to get the Seraph? Seraph decreases the cooldown of your Choke Bomb, and Choke Bomb procs your Tiger Bracelet, meaning you're gonna get more DPS from the Seraph than you would get from the Belful. Belful is only 10% heart step, it's around 2% of your total DPS. Meanwhile, Seraph gives you twice as many bracelet buffs of the Vortex gear, so keep that in mind. After you get your soul shields, accessories, and everything that I said before, you should be making your weapon at least to Raven stage 3. After the weapon, you should be getting the soul next. At this point, I would recommend you going for the 5-second soul, at least Awakened Ascending, and from this point you should try to find any Vortex Temple rides. It might be pretty tough to find Vortex Temple ride with your gear, but do mind you can also be a buyer. You basically buy money to others to take you into the raid, and if the RNG likes you, you might get the item that you want. Of course, you will need to pay for it as well, but you know, there is always a price, right? You want to focus first on getting from Vortex. First of all, you want to get Divine's Greystones. That will make your badge fuse into Arcana Soul Badge. You need Magnum Soul Badge and Blue Moon Soul Badge. This will make your bracelet get 100% uptime. Basically, whenever you use Heart Stab after Choke Bomb, your Choke Bomb cooldown will be reduced. So here is the example: 32 seconds, 20, 70, and I don't have cooldown anymore. I can use it again. So yeah, this is making your rotation smoother and better. Next one to get is your Dynasty Mystic Badge. This one is boosting your DPS by a lot and also gives you a reduced time on the fighting spirit in the progress of the fight. Basically, whenever you use your Heart Stab after casting the Time Bomb, you have 10 seconds, do mind 10 seconds, not 15 as your Pulse Mystic Badge, of cancelling the Lighting Rod. And this is basically your endgame rotation. As you've seen, I didn't have 3 or 6 seconds, so I didn't have 100% uptime. And that is because I don't have 8-set Vortex yet, or rather I didn't use it. This is one of the most important things you wanna get, and you're gonna get it in time. It's not like you can buy it. So make sure you get that as soon as possible, so your rotation can become 100% uptime of both of your badge and your bracelet. So a bit of summary. Lighting Sin is one of the hardest, yet one of the highest DPS classes in the game. It requires a lot of practice and patience, as well as good gear to be viable, but in the end, it is really satisfying to play. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and if you have any questions, leave them in comments below, or join my Discord channel, link is in the description, and I hope you have a good day.